Thanks very much for that, Pat. You're certainly making me sound like a mistress of the dark arts. I hope I live up to the billing. I feel a bit sorry now that Pat invited me to speak after Jeanette, because obviously it's hard to follow a national treasure, but I'll do my best. You're right, Jeanette. Pretty much everything has been said, so I'm not going to reiterate again and go over the same points, but I would like to say that John and Henry sort of lit a fire in school food. But one of the biggest strengths of the plan was that they lit the fire and then they went and persuaded everybody else to give them their firewood and put it onto the fire, and that's what created the blaze. And it's still burning now 3 years later, because they could have just written a dusty old report that would have sat on the shelf, but they didn't. It was an actionable plan and everybody else has taken it on and run with it, and that is its power. But from the perspective of somebody who's been on the inside of the DFE and who was there at the time, I can tell you that all of the things they achieved and the 17 action points, quite a lot of them were put in against the prevailing wind of policy making at the time. So things like getting cooking into the curriculum. At the time, Michael Gove's team were very public about it as well. They were in the business of stripping things out of the curriculum. So to get something, cooking, put in at the same time was massive. They also created a brand and they set up a website, which is what has been a real focus point to share best practice. And that was against public policy at the time as well. I can tell you, when they came and they told me that they wanted a brand and a website, I almost had a heart attack, because we were at that point, we were shutting things down and we were under strict instructions not to spend a penny on communications. And I was the one that had to try and make it happen with them. And like I say, they almost gave me a heart attack. So, but it does go some way to show you what can be achieved in the face of political opposition. But you need evidence and you need partners and you need to be able to go and you need to convince them. I'm not sure if Miles made it quite clear in his presentation, but there are plans to have a leadership board to take on the work of the school food plan, which I think is excellent news. And I think Linda and Peter, you're going to be on it, aren't you? I think some of the details have still got to be worked out, but I think that's fantastic that there are going to be guardians for the school food plan vision who will take that forward. And there are plans afoot, I think, to try and keep the website alive and up to date and refreshed, because it is fantastic. If you haven't looked at it, please do. I urge you to go and have a look. It's very interesting to look at the points that have been achieved and all the people who put such effort in to make everything happen. It's very encouraging. Miles used the word jeopardy. From the perspective of somebody who's been inside the DFE, I just want to make a few points about that jeopardy, just to get you on your guard and on your toes. It was Michael Gove who took on school food. It wasn't in the department's plan at the time. He made it happen. It's down to Michael Gove taking an interest, and he gave a mandate to John and Henry to write the school food plan. So he's to be thanked for that, but he is gone. He is not in the department anymore. It was David Laws who pushed through universal infant preschool meals, and he is gone. You don't have champions in DFE anymore. That is quite clear. And I think if you're watching carefully, it's interesting what you can pick up if you very carefully monitor a department and its communications. Even after David Cameron announced that he was saving universal infant preschool meals, the department itself continued to insist that it was still under review. And it wasn't until the day of the spending review in November that we were able to breathe a sigh of relief and know that it was saved, because right up until that moment, we couldn't be sure if it was going to be removed. So do keep an eye on what they're saying. It's very obvious when you look. There is no public commitment to evaluate. It is £600 million of public funding a year. It's a lot of money. It's dwarfed when you think of what they're spending on obesity-related illnesses. That's 10 billion a year, which makes 600 million look like small change, but 600 million is a lot of money, and the department has not told anyone of any plans to evaluate. Scotland's evaluating. Keep an eye on them. They're already out of the traps, and they're doing a very comprehensive job, so that will help you in your campaign, I think. But it's telling that the department hasn't said that it's going to evaluate. Small schools, I think you need to take very good care of your small schools. 4,300 is a big number. They're very much at risk, I think, with their service. What's telling there is that there was a task force report, and the department isn't publishing it, and that's a matter of public record. I'm not giving anything away. It is saying that most of the report is now available on the School Food Plan website, but what isn't available are the economics and what puts small schools at risk. And I mean, I started off this topic by saying that a fire had been lit and everybody has talked about unity. The small schools issue, I think, is what could start to divide you all, and you need to be very careful of it, because I think when head teachers are forced to make a decision between the kind of food that they serve the children and whether to let a teaching assistant go, that is a terrible choice to have to make. And a teacher might well start to think, I don't care if the food is good or not, we'll give them a sandwich and we'll keep the staff. And there your unity starts to crack. So support your small schools, find a way, and ask government why they're not publishing that report. I think that's very important, and that's something that you could do. So, recommendations as a campaigner. I was very pleased to be asked to help you out back in October, and or September, and I was thrilled when we won. It was a great victory, but you can't be complacent for all of the reasons that I have laid out above. My recommendations as a campaigner to you is stay united. It's really important. Government finds it very difficult to act in the face of a coordinated campaign. The more members you have, the more different tactics that you can come up with, the partnerships that you can form, that starts to make their life difficult. And I know, because I used to have to combat it. So I can tell you it's quite hard work when somebody gets mobilised on the outside. Stay united, form partnerships, form unlikely partnerships out beyond your sector into other sectors. Go and talk to DEFRA, go and talk to BIS, go and talk to Treasury. Don't just stay within your lead department, because if you can form partnerships with other cabinet ministers, for example, they might make the case for you when it comes to cabinet. This might all sound quite high level. Play your part. Everybody in the room can play a part. UIFSM is having an impact on the ground. What is that impact for you, for your teams, for your staff? What is the job creation? You mentioned fleet. People are buying cars. Parts of that money are going back into Treasury. Make a case for all of that, and you can help do that. Gather your evidence and send it back through to LASA, which brings me on to what I think LASA could do, and I don't want to get lynched by Peter or anybody else in the room, but with the School Food Plan office closing, you may not have personally had contact with them, but certainly people in your organisation did. They were a 3-man/woman team. They were very effective. They were very hardworking. They gathered evidence. They gathered case studies. They had facts at their fingertips that they could push out whenever they were approached. They could put people in touch with each other. They put media organisations in touch with teachers. They were very, very important in that. They weren't just maintaining a website. They were vital, and they're going, and that leaves a vacuum. So I would ask you to think about that vacuum and how you fill it. My recommendation to you would be to charge someone with that role, or to appoint a campaign coordinator, director, manager, whatever way you want to do it, but have one person who's a point of contact for you all to gather all of that data and evidence for you. My final recommendation would be to find a way to pay for the research that's been mentioned earlier. I'm going to use a phrase that my father in Northern Ireland would use: go to the butt of the wind and work your way back. I have no idea what the butt of the wind is, but I know what he means. And that is basically, think of yourself at the end of the commitment and work your way back. So they have committed to UIFSM for this Parliament. At that point, even if you make it that far, you're going to have to make a case to keep it. And you're going to have to make a very strong case if you want to extend it and roll it out further. Think about what those arguments are going to be and gather the evidence for it so that you are ready, and you will have more impact if that is done with the help of an external partner. I would recommend you spend some money with a proper research agency, maybe a household name, that really carries some sway at the heart of government of just what the benefits of UIFSM are, and that are the benefits to the Exchequer, not just to a school, because we all love the impact on a school, but that's not necessarily going to sway the hearts of the Treasury bean counters. That's it. Thank you for listening.